everyone for taking time to participate in today's Region 3 webinar. I know your time is valuable, and I can guarantee you that this presentation is going to exceed your expectations. Our topic today is sharing information using technology to meet one-on-one with families. And our presenters are Anna Brenneld and Eileen Gilly from the Central Florida Parent Center. Hey, ladies, thank you for being on.
Hello,
and I do want to warn everybody that Eileen told me there is some weather moving through their area currently. So if we suddenly lose them, it may be due to the weather. If we do, just remain on. We'll try to get the presentation back up. If we cannot, we'll let you know, and it will be archived on the Region 3 website. So thanks again, Anna and Eileen, for doing this for us today. It's all yours.
Great, thank you. Okay, our presentation today is helping families one byte at a time. Byte referring to the numbers in the computer anyway. I want to go ahead and click. Anna's holding the mouse today while I'm talking, so you might hear me say click every once in a while. It's just having her catch up with me. My name is Eileen Gilly. I am the director of Central Florida Parent Center, but first and foremost, I'm a wife and mom. And these are my 3 kids. They are grown now. They're all in their 20s. At one point, I had 3 teenagers in the house, but no more. My oldest is on the right. That's Eric. He is 24 years old. He was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome when he was in 5th grade. He also was diagnosed with ADD and obsessive compulsive disorder. And so he had an IEP. And then my middle child is my daughter, Paige. She's there in the middle. She is 22. And she was premature when she was born. She weighed 1 pound 12 ounces when she was born. She developed retinopathy of prematurity and was extremely visually impaired. She was later diagnosed as having ADD and also OCD, and then recently was diagnosed with Asperger's. And so she had an IEP. And then my youngest there is on the left with the cute little hat on there. That's Kevin. Kevin is just turned 20 years old. He was a typical child, and then when he was 10, he was hit by a car, and he ended up in a hospital homebound program. And so guess what? He had an IEP also. So all 3 of my kids at one time had IEPs. So those are my kids. And then Anna.
Hi, these are my two little girls, Ashley and Gracie. And Ashley's 16 years old, and when she was 18 months old, she had a seizure that lasted 8 hours, and then she went into coma for about a week and woke up with some brain damage. She did go through Part C, and it was back in the day when they took her on a bus, and she had a real school. It was not in the natural environment. But she's doing amazing. And then I have a little girl. She's 3 years old. Her name is Gracie, and we truly feel like a complete family and are very blessed.
Hey. Okay. I don't know how many of you have been around in the PTI business long enough to remember this, but almost 20 years ago when I first started working with the PTI, there was still a couple presentations like this going around, and that was they were on flip charts. They were written flip charts, and the trainers would take them out to groups of parents and do workshops, and they would actually flip the pages over, and that was the precursor to this, which is the next thing we experienced, and that's the overhead projector. How many of us remember that? The overhead projector with our stack of transparencies, and oh my goodness, you make sure those don't get in the wrong order, and you flip them up and over and you put them on the screen, and every once in a while you'd be going along and you happen to look behind you and you realize that you put the transparency upside down, so all the letters are backwards, or I do remember kind of precursor to PowerPoint using a piece of paper to lay it down on top of a transparency, and so this way you could show one bullet at a time, and that was like as high tech as we got, was being able to do that with the overhead projector. And then finally, they came out with LCD projectors. And back in the beginning when they first came out, they were about the size of a smart car. They were really big. But we lugged them around to our workshops that we did for families. And it was so cool because we could have these really snazzy presentations with movement and sound, and so that was fun. But the bottom line is that the center of what we did as PTIs has always traditionally been the presentation of workshops. It was the core activity. It's what we do. We go out and we do workshops for groups of families. It's the most cost-effective way to provide that information to groups of families, right? Was to go out and do workshops. Okay, so I want to give you a little history of Central Florida Parent Center. We were first funded in 2006. We were a brand new parent center, and so we spent our first couple of years, really doing a lot of outreach and getting, our name known, our brand known, so people would have our phone number and call us. So parents, when they, needed us, knew that we were there. And so we're still, always, we all struggle with that to, increase that networking. But we just wanted to share with you some of our numbers that we reported. We wrote in that first 5-year grant from 2006 to 2011 that we would do 105 workshops a year. And this was, for our 30-county area, it was a good estimate of what we could accomplish in a year with the staff that we had. One thing that you might notice from this, though, is the number of people that came to those workshops. 622 people, click, that works out to less than 6 people per workshop. And so, well, actually the math comes out to like 5.9. So it's almost 6 full people at a workshop, which means that, some of our workshops would have more people, so sometimes we were going out doing workshops for 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 people. So, when you go out and do trainings, you change your training for the audience that you have. And so that's what we did. When we went out to do a workshop for a small group like that, we would change the timing of the workshop. We would, we'd schedule an hour and a half or 2 hours for the workshop. But if you have such a small group like that, you can get specific questions from the audience. And maybe you don't spend an hour and a half doing the workshop and a half an hour doing questions. Instead, you spend a half an hour skipping through and hitting the important parts of the workshop, and then spend an hour and a half fielding questions. And we found out this was good. This was a good thing. I mean, it wasn't a good thing that we weren't reaching as many people as we wanted to, but the level of information that those parents got, the deepness of the assistance they received was a good thing. So we started putting on our flyers when we did a workshop, just in case, we would say, bring your IEP documents. And then if we had time at the end of the workshop, we would stay after, whatever, so that we could meet with those parents and provide them with that one-on-one. Click. So we found that lasering in on what each parent actually needs right now was something that was a positive outcome of this, that we could see that folks were getting not just the overview of idea, but just the very specific pieces of idea that they needed for their current situation. Okay, so parents got what they needed. So over the next, I also wanted to point out the home visits and the IEP meetings that were listed here. Now, these are the home visits that, remember, if these are one-on-ones. You go out to the family. You get on the phone with them and you realize there is a lot of detail, there's a lot of history going on, maybe there's some conflict, or for whatever reason you decide you really need to meet with this family in person. You need to sit down with their documents. Let's look at your IEP. Let's look at your latest evaluation results. Let's sit down and really talk about this and strategize how we can, move forward, how we can help you and guide you to move forward. So these were home visits and of course going to IEP meetings. And the problem with that, I mean, there's a definite need for that. We could certainly spend 7 days a week, 365 days a year doing that, but it's expensive. It's expensive. Each one of these home visits required some kind of travel money to go out there and visit, and it was just one parent per visit, so it's like you can only do so much of that because you only have so much travel budget to work with. And when you're only getting one parent per visit, it's just not the most cost-effective way, but sometimes it's really what the parents need, so you provide it as much as you can. Okay, so then we made some changes, and based on, what we were learning about doing workshops, we started doing some webinars. And we were just getting our feet wet. We did 11 webinars that year. And this is moving forward to 2010. And granted, we only had about 4 people at each webinar, but we were, just new at it and getting better at marketing. We still had the same work plan, so we still had to do our 100 workshops that we said we would do. And we did. We did 138 workshops that year, and we did a little better as far as getting people in the seats. This year, instead of 6 people on average, we had 8 people on average. So we were doing a little better at marketing and getting people to go there. But still, doing the webinars was very cool because we were using GoToMeeting to hold these webinars. And the neat thing about that is it's cheap. It doesn't cost hardly anything. Once we had paid the GoToMeeting bill, it was paid, and you can do as many GoToMeetings as you want. And so, it didn't cost us anything. There were no travel expenses related to it, so it was a cheap alternative to workshops, and it beefed up what we were able to do as far as reaching families and teaching families. And so then we also started doing online consults. What this was is we developed a method of doing those home visits that were so cool to be able to do with families, except we would do them online. And the cool part of doing the home visits was the part where you sit down with their documents. And so we worked out a way where we would be able to sit down with parents with their documents using technology, using online internet technology to be able to do it. And we used GoToMeeting and a couple other pieces of technology to pull that off. And the cool thing about that is that it was cheap. It was, again, using GoToMeeting. I mean, it didn't cost us anything. So we still, did some home visits, but our online consults far outweighed the number of home visits that we did. And it barely cost us anything. And so then we also started attending IP meetings using technology. And of course, the technology there most of the time was just a speakerphone in the middle of a table. But still, we were there at the meetings as a support to the parent. Now, this is hard. If you've ever tried this to, participate in an IEP meeting by phone, it's hard. You can't hear what's going on. You have to, who just said that? But one thing I have learned is if you start doing something and you keep doing it, you get better at it. And we got better at it. We got better at managing the challenges of being on the phone and working with the parent ahead of time so that we could support them during the meeting by just being a phone presence. And given that it was the only option we gave them, I can come to that meeting, but, I'm sorry, I'm booked that day. The only way I can do it is by phone. Parents will take it, So the cool thing about going to all those IEP meetings is we were doing it in a way that was cheap. There was absolutely no travel costs associated with going to most of those IEP meetings. So then the end of the grant came along, and it was time to write for a new grant. Go ahead and click again. And so when we got the RFP to write for the new grant, it was for 4 years, and there was a competitive preference in there based on technology. And so we were like, we have to do this. We've been doing this, for the last couple of years anyway. It's been really, really cool, and it's worked out so well for the families, and the families love it, and we love it. So we have to write this in there. We have to try to explain in our proposal what it is we've been doing and what we want to do for the next 4 years. And we took a big chance because what we did is that we took workshops out of the core activity slot and slid online consults into that slot. We made online consultations as our core activity. And so in that, we redefined what a one-on-one meeting was. One-on-one meetings to us no longer mean going out and spending travel dollars to meet with a family. Our one-on-one meetings are completely done online unless, there are there are still families that don't have access to internet access, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So what we did is, for our proposal, we slashed the travel budget. No more travel for going out to do a bunch of workshops, for going to conferences, to going to planning meetings, or all of that travel budget taken out, hired, instead put in more people to be able to do these online consults from their home. Okay, and so in our proposal, we put in, now who had ever heard of doing this? Our target number of in-person workshops was only 10. We went from 100 a year in the previous grant to only proposing 10 workshops a year in this proposal. And that's like unheard of. Who ever heard of a PTI that only does 10 workshops in a whole year? And so we wrote the proposal, did the best we could, kissed it and sent it off, and then waited for the results. And what happened next is, boom, we got funded. Yay! So they took a chance on us. They liked the proposal and they funded it. And so, you know, we started October 1st, 2011. Click. With our new grant, and we, you know, already had existing ways of getting families to know about us. We have our website, we have our social network sites, and we have worked really hard in the last 5 years on building networks, agencies and organizations and parent groups and parents and other stakeholders to send folks our way. And so our phones are ringing, and we're always going to work towards that, you know, happening more and more and more. But we are getting phone calls, and the phone calls that we're getting are from this parent. You might recognize this parent. This is the parent who is laying on a park bench screaming at her cell phone because she's like, end of her rope, you know. And not every parent that calls us is this parent, but enough of them are, where it's just they're frustrated, they don't understand the process. You all know, you know exactly what I'm talking about. By the time they finally get our phone number, they just, you know, they're at their wits' end. What, you know, what do I do? How, you know, who can help me? And so the very first thing we do is as we always do, we let them vent. And you know how it is, you get them on the phone and they're, you know, you're the first person who's truly understood exactly what they're going through because you're a parent yourself and you've been through it yourself. And so we let them vent and, you know, get out all that history and things that's been upsetting for them. And then we start to help them to focus. And our intake process helps our IEP coaches. That's what we call them. We don't have parent trainers anymore. We have IEP coaches. And the IEP coaches help them to focus and try to weed through the history and discard all that negative history from the past and anything that isn't relevant right now, you know. So we help them to try to focus on their top 3 concerns today. If, you know, what is it that you want to, you know, you want help with today? And so then, you know, it gets them to calm down and think about those top 3 things. And you know, if they have something immediate they need help with right here, right now, today, of course we're going to give them that help. But if nothing else, they realize, you know, we are going to help them, and that alone is enough, you know, to get them like calm down. And I'm preaching to the choir here. I realize this is what we all do every day, you know, as we answer the phone. Okay, but what we do, because we're going to be using this technology, is at this point we ask them to stop. Let's cut off this conversation today and let's schedule an appointment for later. Let's pick a time where you have a chunk of time to spend with me, where you can, you know, it can be weekends, evenings, you know, after the kids go to bed, if that's you know, the best time for you. Where you know we can sit down and talk for quite a while. Maybe pick a time when, if there's, you know, a dad in the picture, or, you know, the other spouse, I should say, because it could be the dad calling, to get them on the phone too. Let's, you know, let's go through this as a team. And so, and that works. Often by scheduling that second appointment, we have brought up our numbers on how many people are on that phone call. And most often it's either a spouse or another family member. And so we schedule this appointment for a later time. And it's not just a regular appointment, it is a GoToMeeting appointment, which GoToMeeting software is like the one, like WebEx, what we're using right now. You can see Anna's screen. You can see her mouse moving occasionally. You know, so it's the same type of technology. Okay, so in the meantime, give them a little homework. Here's what you need to do between now and the meeting. I need you to gather together your paperwork, your relevant paperwork right now, and that would be your most recent IEP, maybe a draft IEP if you can get a copy of the draft that they're working on, your most recent evaluation results, and any paperwork, any documentation that they have, letters maybe that they've written already, anything that's relevant to whatever their top 3 concerns are, to fax that information to us. And so almost everybody has access to a fax machine in some way. Okay, so, but when they fax it to the phone number that we give them, it doesn't go to our fax machine. Instead, it goes to, well, a service. And we use RingCentral, but basically there are a lot of companies out there that do that. We have a fax number from RingCentral that instead of going to a fax machine, as soon as they fax it, it is immediately converted into a PDF and emailed to us. And so then we have a digital version of whatever those documents are sent directly to our computer. So our IEP coaches can, pull it up on their computer and take a look at, whatever documents that were sent. And you know how it is. If you know what the person's top 3 concerns are, you can go through the paperwork and you can pick out things, and circle things or make notes about things that, that's not strong enough language, or, ooh, they need a better goal for that, or it's not even, mentioned here, so you can make suggestions for changes that they can consider as options for discussion during the next IEP meeting. And so in between that first conversation on the phone and the second meeting, which will be, using GoToMeeting technology, we have an opportunity to plan a very individualized training session with that parent. We will plan ahead of time based on what I know from this paperwork, based on what I know from what their current concerns are. I can pull out things that will be helpful for them and plan a very individualized training session for them. Okay, so when the next time we meet, they're on the phone perhaps like we are now, listening in and hearing and also seeing the mouse on the computer. Doing this, instead of doing like a broad workshop about IDEA in general, this would laser them in on just the components, directly related to whatever their current concerns are. Okay, so during that one-on-one, we have lots of options for, what it is we're going to do during that one-on-one using technology. Most of the time, we go over the documents, reviewing the documents. We use the cursor to point out specifics. They don't have to pull it out and look at it. They can follow along right on the screen. We're looking at page 3 here at the bottom where it talks about transportation, and you watch the cursor point it out, and here's what I wanted to, mention about that, and it opens it up for discussion and giving them guidance. We can also help them make a list of concerns. Just whip open an email directed to them and do the typing while you talk. Here's your concerns. Here are maybe some issues, that we talked about that you want to bring up. What do you want to bring up at the next meeting? And how, absolutely the best tip is to come prepared with a list of concerns or issues, so you can help them with that. And then as soon as you're done with the email, click send, and they have a copy already typed up and ready for them. You can assist them with letter writing, document, and so you can guide them to templates that they could use in the future, show them how you manipulate those templates and make it for your own situation, customize it. We could also provide a customized internet tour. We can plan out ahead of time what websites would be particularly helpful to this parent at this time and take them there. And so that way, not only can they see, oh wow, that's really helpful, but we send them the links here's the, another email with all the links that I showed you, and boom, send it off to them, and they can go there on their own time and look up their own things and start to learn, how to do this themselves. We can also share with them relevant resource materials, and each of our IEP coaches was given a flash drive with resource materials all nicely organized in alphabetical order, in folders. And so these resource materials, we can, say, okay, well, you're concerned today is transition, and so you can show them what those resource materials are. We also have these brief coaching modules, and what these are little tiny PowerPoint presentations. They might have 2, 3, 4, 5 slides in them. And it's like when you come up on a certain concept and you just want to laser in and talk about that concept. So say the concept that comes up is least restrictive environment. You can pull up our brief coaching module that's just about that and explain, just that one item to them. And we have an assortment of coaching modules, and so you can pull up ones that are applicable to whatever the family's concerns are right now. And then during these calls, we also market upcoming webinars because, those general sessions are still very, useful and interesting and, in a general sense. And we also invite sometimes these families to come meet us at IEP clinics, which I'll be explaining in just a minute. Okay, so that is what using the online technology looks like. There are also situations where we're not using online technology. Click. And that is because families don't have access to, computer, internet, whatever technology that they're using. We have found that families will find a way. If they don't have a computer and they don't have internet, they know somebody who does. They go to a neighbor's, they go to their sisters, they go to the library. If they can in any way utilize the technology, they jump on it and they do it. But if they don't have access to technology, we do have a plan for delivering this type of assistance, and that is utilizing snail mail. And so we send them out a stamped, addressed envelope to come back to us, a big manila envelope, and so they send us back copies of their documentation, and then we talk to them on the phone. And so here's a nice old-timey phone to represent that low technology. And just real quick, I just wanted to share this because I thought it was too funny. Somebody on Facebook that's on my timeline or whatever shared this just today, and that was a picture of a phone almost exactly like this, and it said underneath that our children will never know the satisfaction from slamming the receiver down on a phone like this. And that is a cell phone. It's a phone like that. Those who have been on this earth long enough to use a phone like that know what I'm talking about. Okay, so, we do have a plan for providing assistance when people don't have technology, and we still go out and meet with families one-on-one. Now, when we can, we will have an IEP clinic and invite folks, families to the IEP clinics because it's a more cost-effective way of doing this. And so the IEP clinics are held at these big, beautiful buildings. See, we have big, beautiful IEP clinic buildings in every major city. No, that's not true. We don't have any IEP clinic buildings because we can't afford any IEP clinic buildings. Actually, IEP clinics are just a series of appointments. Go ahead and click, Anna, because I really want that building. But okay, they're just a series of appointments. And what we do is each of our IEP coaches schedule one of these every other month. And so then when they're on the phone with families, they can, by appointment only, schedule folks to come out to these IEP clinics. So if one of our, say, our IEP coach, Alyssa, is on the phone with someone and she really feels like, even though they have use of technology, maybe they could really utilize that one-on-one time, she could make a judgment call to say, hey, I have an IEP clinic coming up in Hardy County on the 14th, and I know you're in, Highlands County, and it's a little, it's probably 35 miles away from you, but if you want to meet me there on the 14th, I'll make an appointment at 2 o'clock, and you'd be surprised at how many people say, I'll be there, I'll find a way, So the IEP clinics is a way for us to schedule multiple appointments in one location so that our IEP coaches are only spending those travel dollars once instead of going out to separate appointments for every single one-on-one. Of course, if there are transportation issues, you know, or financial issues at play, we will go and do home visits just like we always have. But our IEP clinics are usually held at places where we can utilize the internet, places that have free Wi-Fi, because we're all about getting stuff free. So Starbucks, McDonald's, they both provide free Wi-Fi, or most of them do. And then, you know, libraries, some of them, you know, have access to free internet there too as well, because we certainly want to be able to show them online resources, even if they don't have access themselves. We can, you know, access that information and share it with them while we have the computer in front of us. Okay, so yes, sometimes, you know, the one-on-ones that we go out and do in person are because, you know, the person doesn't have access to technology, and sometimes it's just because we want to meet with them in person. It may be a very involved or conflict situation, and it would just be helpful for the parent to get that extra layer of support. Okay, so now we want to share with you how it's been going. It's been 10 months, and I just wanted to interject here before we move on that whenever I try to explain this to someone who's, you know, familiar with, you're taking workshops out of what you do, how, you know, the question that I get is how, without the workshops, how are you going to reach your numbers? How are you going to reach as many people when you don't have multiple people coming to workshops? Well, we still do some workshops, and we try to have them at venues where there's more people, like big conferences and so forth. But we're relying as our core activity on our online consults for the people, and you'll see how we're still going to meet the numbers for the people. Okay, so let's go on and look at, this was back in 2010. Let's look now at 2012. These are actual numbers from our first 10 months. We said we'd do 10 workshops, we've done 12. We have actually plans for more before the end of September. We've done 14 webinars, but look at this. We have done 542 online consultations for 704 people. This is just in the first 10 months of the first year of this grant where we proposed this. We've done that many in 10 months. Now, those 704 people, that's showing you it's about 1.3 people per meeting, means about a third of the time we're getting that second person to be in on the meeting, which is very, very cool that we're, you know, capturing another person to be their spouse or other family member. One thing I wanted to point out about that number, 542, click, Anna, is that most of those 542 online consults took place between October and May. That's the 8 months that school is in. And we didn't hire and train our new IEP coaches until the end of May. And so pretty much from October to May, that was those online go-to-meetings were the product of only 2 IEP coaches doing the work. June and July, of course, are slow months. Now we have 5 IEP coaches, and, you know, so obviously most of them were done during that October to May period. So now we can easily project what our numbers are going to look like at the end of this year. You know, we'll have a couple more workshops, more webinars. Back up there, Anna. Back up. Okay. And we're projecting 600, no, sorry. Go where it says 690. Stop right there. No, back up one. So we've got a month and a half, you know, to fill in the rest of those numbers. We're looking at 896 people is our projected number of people reached by that activity. And so we're looking at a total of about what we reached in 2010, which isn't bad for our first year of, you know, while we're gearing up for this new activity. And, you know, in those first months before hiring, we were developing materials and so forth. Okay, so next year, how cool is this? Next year, we're going to have a full roster of 5 IEP coaches, and so we're projecting over 1,100 online consults for 1,400 people. And so we're going to far surpass then what we, how many people we reached through our activities in our 30-county area, for 2013 year. So we're very excited about that. And so I just wanted to share that with you. If you're like concerned, oh my goodness, how are you going to reach, as many people? It's because we have more staff, basically, and we have the ability to do that. All right, now I'm going to turn this over real quick to Anna, and she's going to share how it really works. Go ahead, Anna.
Good afternoon, everybody. Briefly, I'm going to take you through 3 scenarios, which is a GoToMeeting intake log, an in-person intake log, and also a phone intake log, which they're very intensive one-on-one meetings. So first I'll show you a blank one. So this is how we see it as coaches. So when the phone rings, we begin the process, and we take the intake. We ask if this is a first-time caller or if this is going to be a continuation. We see how the meeting is going to take place. As the conversation is going and if it's intense but the parent really needs immediate stuff done, we may go from by phone to GoToMeeting in a second, or we could schedule that GoToMeeting for a later date. So we get the parents' information, how many people are going to participate, the contact information, the county they live, the child's name, the gender, the age range, child's grade, the primary disability, and then the child's placement in school, and then the parents' top concerns for today, the top 3 concerns. We ask the parents if they're in conflict, even if we know they're in conflict. We don't want to make that judgment call, so we've always asked the family if they're in conflict. Then if we're going to get further information, we're going to ask them, would you like to email that to us or fax it, snail mail, or we might have already received it because this is a continuation call. So then what we would do is we would schedule our follow-up coaching session here, and then if we're going to participate in the IEP meeting, we would check off if we were going to be participating by phone or in person, or we're not going to be participating at all because we trained our family so well they don't even need us. But then we would put the date there. Then any other services that we provided, like Eileen talked about earlier, internet tours, assistance with letter writing, or maybe it wasn't something in the list and we would have to put that there. Then if we used any of our coaching modules, we would definitely check off all that apply. What was this call about? How did the one-on-one meeting go? And any other comments, and then the length of the call. So then as we move on, we're going to take a closer look at one. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Bunker called me on August 15th, and this was their first-time call by phone. And Mr. Bunker informed me that Edith would not be participating because he is in charge. I got all his contact information, found out a little bit about Gloria, found out she's in the 1st grade, and she's suspected of having a disability, and that's when Mr. Bunker decided to take this phone call to a whole nother level by informing me that the teacher has made a referral for his daughter to be evaluated for special education. He felt as though that there was nothing wrong with little Gloria, that the school's just looking for more money and they should just do their job. So I had to take a deep breath and explain to Mr. Bunker that everything is going to be okay and little Gloria would only benefit from specially designed instruction and related services if indeed qualified for the specific learning program. But I just knew I needed some time to pass before I started throwing all the information at him, so I asked him at that time if he'd like to schedule a GoToMeeting, and he indeed agreed. Okay. So, close that tab, go back to the PowerPoint there. So, after that phone call, Eileen's going to explain to you a little bit about what this is. Eileen? Hello?
Oh, sorry, I had muted myself.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and click on the link there, Anna. Okay, that takes you to a different view of this email. This is an email that after the one-on-one on the phone, Anna was sent to Mr. Bunker. And we only send these emails to folks who have just found us, started working with us for the first time. So this is the only contact they've had with us is that first initial phone call. And so what this email is asking is for them to participate voluntarily in a survey. So here's the survey. It asks, you know, some basic information at the top. But basically the survey itself is only 5 questions long. And it's all about how do you feel. You're at the beginning of your relationship with Central Florida Parent Center and the help that we're going to give you. So this is capturing pre-data. How comfortable do you feel in your knowledge of special education laws and procedures right now? How prepared do you feel to plan strategies for your child's IEP? How knowledgeable do you feel in your understanding of ways to resolve conflict? How confident do you feel in going to your child's IEP meeting? And how effective is the communication between you and school personnel? And these questions tie in exactly with what our predicted outcomes are of this particular activity, is that after going through this intensive one-on-one, we will see a difference in this. So this was a survey was put together between us and our third-party evaluator, and what is going to happen with this is anyone who voluntarily participates in this survey will be part of a pool who will be drawn from maybe 6 months, maybe 9 months down the road to contact them again and ask them to participate in a follow-up or post-survey. And at that time, they're asked the exact same questions and see if in the interim, do you feel our, you know, assistance helped you, you know, and how comfortable do you feel now? So anyway, I just wanted to share with you all that that's what that survey is about.
Okay, thank you so much, Eileen.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so now we're moving on to our second meeting with the Bunker family, and I'll take you to that intake log. So as you can see, this is a continuation meeting. It's done by phone and GoToMeeting, but look at this. They have agreed to be on the phone together, so I knew immediately I made progress from the first phone call. So they both joined, and we're talking about little Gloria. And if you go down, the parents' top 3 concerns today was about IDEA, SLD, and least restricted environment. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of the resources and all the stuff that I use to help them throughout this meeting. But just to let you know that this meeting that the Bunkers are going to be attending is a week from now, so we did talk about, you know, that they're going to have to sign consent and the timelines and what the benefits are. So let me take you into that. So immediately I decided to do the internet tour. I had pre-customized this to meet their unique needs, to talk about IDEA, show them a really parent-friendly website called Rights Law, and also building the legacy. I gave them specific resources, you know, and I'm going to show you my resource folder that Eileen was talking about earlier. These are all of the resource folders that we have. So whether we're in person, in GoToMeeting, at an IEP meeting, or, you know, whenever we're doing this, we have access to these folders. So this is really good information. So say the parent had questions about transportation. Oops, wrong one. Where did it go? Transportation. Is that not pulling up right? Okay, let's do, yeah, that was right. I'm sorry. Transition. Let's talk about transition. So I would take these folders and all this documentations, and either I can email it to the family or we can mail this to the family. But if I'm in that GoToMeeting, I'm going to be opening up these documents and sharing every single thing with the family. And say we're talking about transition and we need to know about the terminologies, I may just email this over and say familiarize yourself with this verbiage, because you're going to hear these at least, you know, 1 or 2 times, so the parent can get a head start in planning in that meeting. So let's go back to our PowerPoint here. So I don't know why it took me there. Let me scroll over. I do apologize. Eileen, it didn't work. Your handy tool. Let's see. Okay, so we did the internet tour, gave specific resources. Then we may talk about the policies and procedures, which are the way the district views exceptional student education. And then here's some great coaching modules. The first one we did was placement decisions in least restricted environment. The second coaching module I used was FAPE, Free Appropriate Public Education, and that told all about it. And then we were on to our third meeting, and this was done at an IEP clinic. We thought face-to-face would be pretty good, so once again, we do that intake log, and we go through some more resources, and I wrote some more history down in here, and it was really neat because after I had gone through and done the IEP clinic with them, Edith turned around and she gave me a wink, and she had tears in her eyes that they had made such progress. So pretty much what we did that at the IEP clinic, we created a draft letter, and of course the parents are going to tweak it and edit it and add more. I just provided the verbiage and the understanding of idea to them, and then they could take it and run with it. And it's funny to see the progress from that first phone call to here on how much the bunkers have gained knowledge, and we all know knowledge is power. So then I gave them some homework because the eligibility meeting wasn't coming up yet, so for them to prepare. So they created a list of Gloria's strengths and weaknesses. I told them to ask their daughter what her favorite thing about school is and what is her least favorite thing. What concerns, questions, or suggestions do they have at the moment? I also gave them tips on verbal communication, nonverbal communication, written communication, active listening. Long story cut short, by using our savvy technology and providing that intensive one-on-ones, we provided tools to the Bunker family to put in their basket so they can advocate for their child in a collaborative, professional manner. The barriers broke, the lines of communications opened, and collaborative approaches were implemented. And good news, Gloria was found eligible for SLD program, and the IEP was written 10 days later. Mr. Bunker joined the ESE School Advisory Council and is actively involved.
Yay.
Edith is at peace. Yay! And Edith is at peace and is looking for a marriage coach. She asked me, but I am only the IEP coach.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Awesome, awesome job. Okay, we also wanted to, before we finish this up, share our guest book with y'all. On our website, cflparents.org, we had built in a guest book, and its original intention was just so people could kind of stop in and say hi and let us know, hey, I was, on your website. And over the last 5 years, it has morphed into something completely different than we saw it at the beginning. And that is, parents come there and they share their stories and they share their really positive, wonderful outcomes, and they thank our IEP coaches, in the past, our parent trainers, for the help they were giving them. So these are some of the ones that we've received. I just wanted to share a few of them. You're welcome to go to our website and look at all of them. There are, you'll see this, this one from June was number 315. So there are more than 300 of these messages on the guest book, and we're very proud of that. And if we ever need, to get a little inspiration for what it is that we do, all we have to do is go to this guest book and start reading, because it's amazing. Okay, so on June 6th, Tamra wrote, thank you, Anna, for coaching and empowering me to use the most effective strategies to develop my daughter's IEP. I've been in a 2-year battle, but feel that your help will get us to the best resolutions for my child's educational needs, short and long term. Thanks to Doreen as well for the late night you both spent with me on the phone preparing for a meeting. Back in April, Linda wrote, Anna, thank you for all your help and enormous amount of time that you have put into helping with my daughter's IEP. You are truly dedicated. I now understand the different parts of the IEP and was able to speak intelligently at her IEP meeting. Thank you. So we would like to imagine that this is how Linda felt. Yay! Amazing, amazing. Okay, so we have, go ahead and click. Let's go show them a couple more. Bridget, back in February, wrote, I was truly desperate when I contacted Doreen. I was at the end of all my known resources and felt completely hopeless and powerless with no idea how to proceed to help my son. Doreen and Anna were like a miracle. They both jumped into my situation, offering hope and suggestions of help that let me believe that there actually was help for us. I can finally stop crying. Oh, that's so awesome. Erin, back in July, wrote, thank you for all the information on the IEP tonight. I'm very new at this, and I'm very grateful to have people like Jill and Anna to help me. Thank you again. So we imagine this is how Erin feels. Yay! Okay, and then last but not least, wanted to share this one with y'all. This is from Victoria. It was back in 2011, but this was after one of these intensive one-on-ones. I want to say thank you to Anna for spending quite a bit of time helping to prepare me for my daughter's first IEP/eligibility meeting. I think it's amazing that there is such a valuable resource available. I am spreading the word. It is important to know that it goes way beyond IEP info. It included compassion and understanding, as well as info and education regarding other valuable resources. Thank you for joining Brooke's team. So these are just, you know, some samples of the input that we're getting back from these intensive one-on-ones that are taking place online. And just wanted to share, you know, when I pulled these, I noticed that there was this common theme through the ones that I chose, and it wasn't on purpose, but they all, like, mentioned, you spent so much time with me. You spent so much time with me. And I thought, you know, okay, well, let's look and see, you know, how does this work out? How can we spend that kind of time with families on the phone? So, like, okay, next year we're planning on serving 1,100 parents this way with 5 IEP coaches, which means we're looking at 220 per IEP coach per year. So if you take that divided by 52 weeks, we're basically looking at our IEP coaches providing this level of service to 4.2 parents per week. Absolutely doable. Not only, I mean, not every parent that calls us is going to need this level of assistance, but for the ones that do, you know, we can do 4.2 parents per week, not a problem. And we can give them that kind of, you know, wow, you spent hours with me. I can't believe, you know, you stayed with me on the phone for that long. So we imagine this is how Victoria feels. Dun, dun.
Yay!
Okay. Yay. So, you know, we are helping families one bite at a time.
That's right. And yes, that's right. So we hope that you enjoyed our presentation today, Helping Families One Bite at a Time. And if you have any questions about this workshop, or if you would like to get some further information, you can definitely contact us. Our contact information is there. If you have any families moving to Florida in our catchment area, please feel free to send them over. I'm ready. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for joining us today.
And thank you to Partners in Texas for hosting us.
Glad to do
that. Are you guys there?
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, questions. We have some time. If any of you have questions, go ahead at this time.
Questions are, do Anna and Eileen always talk that fast?
Are they always that much, are they always so that exciting? Am I supposed to see the questions?
No, we can't see them.
Okay.
Hang on, we've got something here. Let's get it.
Oh, I do see something. Could we use any of those little tidbit PowerPoints you were talking about, the brief modules? Yes, actually, we'd be happy to share those. So I don't know if you want to contact us directly. You could send an email to that cflparents.org. Send it to Anna at cflparents.org. And we'll make sure that you get copies of the modules. That'd be fine.
Great.
Here we go. We've got another
We have another.
From Amanda Chandler. One problem is most of my rural parents are lower income and don't have readily available internet access.
Yes. Yeah, and we, you know, we understand that. We serve a 30-county area of Florida that is very diverse as far as we have the, you know, some of the biggest cities in Florida. Of course, not including Miami, but we have Jacksonville, Orlando, and the Tampa Bay area in our catchment area. But we also have some of the most rural areas in our catchment area. So, you know, we're hitting both. And we still are, you know, going out and doing those one-on-ones in person, you know, when we need to. But more and more, that digital divide is absolutely closing. If nothing else, their kids have access to computers. And so, you know, we're more and more being able to offer this kind of technology, you know, to a broad section of our population. But yes, absolutely, we do have that situation where some folks just don't have access to technology.
As you mentioned, the libraries are often a good resource for folks that don't have access.
Well, we have no actual library. We made a choice at the beginning when we were funded not to hold on to a lot of paper that gets very quickly obsolete. And so our entire library is completely digital, and then if folks need information and they don't have access to email, then we will print it out and send it to them, you know, as we go. And so that way we're not having to, you know, get rid of obsolete information. We can always be printing out updated information and sending it out.
Okay, we have one more question's popped up here.
I see, do you guys use any sort of mass texting? Texting as to cell phones, not directly. However, we do have Facebook and Twitter, and so if a person sets up their cell phone voluntarily to receive the information on their cell phone in the form of a text, they will get it from those avenues of social networking. We do also do this one-on-one, not just through GoToMeeting, but also, you know, people catch us online on Facebook, and we'll do an entire kind of one-on-one through Facebook, or sometimes it's good to have real face-to-face, and so we use Skype and do it that way so we can actually see each other. Or we also use Yahoo Messenger, which allows us, and again, you can have your Yahoo Messenger come to your phone if you choose, and so that could be kind of a mass texting kind of thing. And we also have a listserv, and so we regularly send out information to our listserv, and so that way, you know, folks get information on through email. Okay, I see more questions.
From Madeline Lombardi, why did you select GoToMeeting? And
okay. Well, we looked at different things. You know, that there's WebEx and GoToMeeting, and there was a couple more that we looked at. And there's like a pretty wide difference in the cost of some of them. Our first thing that led us to GoToMeeting was the cost factor, and then it became part of TechSoup, and then the cost factor got even better. So absolutely, GoToMeeting, if you get it through TechSoup, it's really financially a plus. I don't know that much about the WebEx software. I know that there's, just from using it today, that there's a couple things that GoToMeeting seem to have that WebEx maybe doesn't, and that's the ability to, like Anna and I couldn't hand it off back and forth to each other as co-presenters, and the only person who can set it up, you know, and maybe it's just set up that way, but in GoToMeeting I could have handed off the presentation to Anna, and she could have handed it back to me, and so that way I could be running my own PowerPoint instead of going click, click, click.
And Eileen, a good point that you just made is that a lot of the times when I'm in the GoToMeeting, I'll give the parent the screen, and they can, if they forgot to send me something, they can immediately go into their computer, find it, give them the screen, and I could see their documentation. So
right.
That's another good point.
True. There was a question, will you share your intake forms? Absolutely. We worked really closely with our third-party evaluator to set up these intake forms, and it took months of tweaking And every other day, there'd be another question on there that we'd say, don't use that. It's still there, but don't use it, because we're changing it and moving the data over into the new question. And so we would be happy to, just send us an email saying, you would like to have a copy of our intake form, and we'd be happy to send it to you. It was really easy to set up in SurveyMonkey. And we budgeted in this grant for buying the expensive SurveyMonkey. It's like $200 a year, and totally worth it, every cent. We use it not just for that, but for other online, collection of data, and it's awesome. So, okay, do you use separate conference call by phone with GoToMeeting? We can. That's one thing that we noticed too between WebEx and GoToMeeting is that you have a choice as a participant to either participate by phone or participate through your computer with mic and speakers. And so if you have a mic and speakers on your laptop and you're calling in, you can just put a headset on, and you don't have to have a phone. You could just use that. And it's not chosen by us as like the presenters, so to speak. It's chosen by the participants, and so they can do it either way. So there's a number that they can call in to be on the conference call with us, and we can participate by, I know we all have headsets and just use mic and speakers, and it's wonderful. You don't have to be on the phone. Yes, Anna, go ahead.
Another good thing is that on the GoToMeeting, there's a webcam. So if the parent wants to see me face-to-face, I could just click my webcam. They can have their webcam on, and we can see each other throughout the whole entire one-on-one intake. And it's really neat, especially if there's some emotional support that's needed, just to be able to connect the eyes. It's really neat. So the webcam is a great feature.
Yeah, that feature just recently came out in GoToMeeting, and yeah, we like that a lot. We also use our GoToMeeting, just as an aside here. We have field staff, obviously, that work in different areas in our catchment area, and we have staff meetings, and we use the GoToMeeting for that. And so all of our staff can see each other. They all have their webcams up, and they feel like they're a part of the big group at our home office. All right, we're right at 4 o'clock. Yay! So we want to begin on time and end on time. And again, I just want to thank everybody for participating, and it was fun. Anna and I enjoyed, sharing what we do because we're very passionate about what we do. So we appreciate everybody's participation.
Real fast, Eileen.
Yes.
Cell phone count as technology, like texting?
I didn't hear the question.
Does calling on a home phone or texting on a cell phone, does that count as technology?
Well, that is kind of like the question that was earlier. Do you guys use any sort of mass texting? And so, they're more and more, folks have access to cell phones rather than to, the internet through other ways. And so, like I said, we have our listserv, we have, the social networking sites, including Twitter, which, you can set to go as a mass text to the people, if they've chosen to have it go to their phone. But as far as these one-on-ones, it's not usually a texting back and forth situation. There's too much detail to go through, to do it on a text. So, not quite sure what that question was about.
I have to say that I do text message if a parent's in an IEP meeting and they said they can handle it. I would keep them on hold, and if they had a question, they can text me real quick, and then I text them back. So that's a feature that we use by our phones with texting.
True.
Okay. Well, this was wonderful. We can't thank you enough, Anna and Eileen, for the good information and the excitement that you obviously conveyed presenting it. Thanks for all the good questions. I want to remind everyone of a couple things. The first is this webinar will be archived on our website. So if you'd like to see or listen to it again, you can go there in the next couple days. Also, be sure and answer the survey that should follow. Everyone who registered should receive a survey following the webinar. And next month, our webinar is actually going to be presented by someone from another region. We're going to be talking about social networking and communities of practice, and that's going to be presented by Renee Swink. So look forward to that. We'll make sure you get the information out in time. Once again, thanks, Anna. Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we will see you all next month.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.